10, 9, 8.
Tak, pan przyszedł na konferencję, żeby też właśnie obserwować.
Obserwować, no tak. 10, 9, 8, 7.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Karolina Pawłowska and I am the director of the Ordo Iuris International Law Center. Before I will pass the voice to our distinguished panelists, I would like to say a few words about why we are all meeting today. We are all gathered here as a coalition of non-governmental organizations, political leaders, and all those who stand for real human rights to say no to the Matic Report, which is going to be soon discussed by the European Parliament. On May 11th, the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality adopted the report on sexual and reproductive health and rights by a member of European Parliament, Predrag Fred Matic, and submitted it to the European Parliament. Many years before, in 2014, thanks to the opposition of civil society, it was possible to reject the adoption of so-called Estrela report, very similar to the Matic report. The goal of that report was also to introduce concepts of reproductive health and rights and so-called right to abortion into the official language of the European Union. Today, despite the fact that the opposition to this attempt was so clearly expressed then, we have to face another threat for introducing these radical concepts into the official language of European Union. The so-called Matic report is about recognizing that abortion on demand is a human right, that sexuality education in its most permissive condition is also a human right, and that we have a distinct category of sexual rights as human rights. Rights that must also be recognized and implemented by all EU member states. We have to clearly remind that discussion concerning these documents should never take place on the forum of the European Parliament, not only because abortion, sexuality education, sexual and reproductive health and rights concepts are very controversial, but also because European Union treaties, which reflect negotiations of member states, are very strict that health and family issues are solely competences of member states. International treaties never recognize abortion as a human right. It is just the opposite. All of them, beginning of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, ending at the Convention on the Rights of a Child, are very strict that the right to life and dignity are the most important rights, are the fundamental rights which should be protected by every state and every institution. Even non-binding declarations such as Cairo or Beijing Programme for Actions are stating that it is our obligation to minimize the number of abortions. The Matic report is then completely opposite to these rights that were negotiated by member states. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to show that the civil society is against such attempts of the European Parliament. We would like to invite all NGOs, political leaders, academics, and citizens concerned about the future of Europe to join our movement. I would like to invite all of you to visit our webpage, www.sayno2EU-violating-treaties.org. And now I would like to pass the voice to Mrs. Anna Zaborska, representative of the Parliament of Slovakia to say some more remarks about the Matic report. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we are meeting here to stand together for the rights and liberties that are the basis of the democratic structure of society. Freedom of speech, religious freedom, the most fundamental rights to life, but also the rights of nations to self-determination. The Matic Report attacks all these values, and that is why we must strongly oppose it. Anyone who knows me and knows about the 15 years I have spent as a member of the European Parliament knows that I am a supporter of European integration. I want a strong Europe of strong nations. If such cooperation is to be lasting, we need to respect the sovereignty of the member states, the democratic origin of their power, and respect the agreements and competencies as set out in the treaties. Article 168, paragraph 7 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, which is the responsibility of nation states, says that Union action shall respect the responsibilities of the member states for the definition of their health policy and for the organization and delivery of health services and medical care. At this point, the Matic Report goes beyond the European Parliament's competencies when it seeks to intervene in the area of sexual and reproductive health and rights. There is a lot of talk in the European Union today about upholding the rule of law. And precisely because our countries are states that honor the treaties, we must insist that the agreements will be respected, that each institution does only want what its law, treaties, and regulations stipulates, and does not exceed its power. I also consider this to be crucial with regard to the future of the European Union. The arbitrary increase in the competence of the EU institution at the expense of the member states only depends the distrust the EU citizens in its institutions and contributes to the growing extremism that the Union itself wants to fight. Therefore, if we do not want to contribute to the division of the Union, we must reject the Matic Report. It is worrying not only that the competencies of the European Union are trying to be exceeded, but the report and that the sovereignty of the member states is being attacked. But also the content of the report itself, which is unbalanced, one-sided, and ideological. It is not acceptable for us in the democratic state to force doctors and other medical staff who do not want to participate in abortion to go against their own conscience and personal convictions. It is a clear attack on freedom of conscience and religious freedom as one of the basic pillars of our society. It is also unthinkable for the report to try to silence the opponents of the traditional view of the protection of life, those activities they would call hateful. If we respect the fundamental values of democracy and the sovereignty of our states, And some of us, we have had a bitter experience of violences, these fundamental rights and freedoms during the communist era. We must do everything we can to ensure that this report is not adopted. Thank you for your attention.
Dear Mrs. Zaborska, thank you so much for your statement. Now I would like to pass the voice to Dr. Lisa Nolan, sex historian and CEO of the Marriage, Sex and Culture Group from United Kingdom. Dr. Nolan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much and wonderful being with you today. May I congratulate the Ordu Luris Institute. Your effort is vital in pushing back against the radical Matic Report, and we are delighted to stand with you. My name is Dr. Lisa Noland. I'm a sex historian and the CEO of the Marriage, Sex and Culture Group, London. We are appalled by the, quote, progressive sex revolution which is enveloping the globe along the lines of Gabriel Kubi's seminal work, The Global Sexual Revolution, Destruction of Freedom in the Name of Freedom. A fabulous book here. Great, sorry, it's backwards. To that end, in relation to these issues, we expose the corruption and rot and promote the good. We stand with the victims, fight for the right to dissent in public, and encourage grassroots pushback and activism. One vital part of this exposure is what is involved in, say, abortion, so-called comprehensive sex education, and LGBT claims. Because mainstream media controls the definition and framing of these issues, conservatives, people of Christian faith, other faiths, and no faith, are constantly back-footed along the lines, have you stopped beating your wife yet? In other words, the issues are set up to elicit a particular desired response. So a key strategy of the MSC, my group, is to counter the claims in the avenues which open up to us. In relation to the media, we are promoting former BBC correspondent Robin Aitken's classic, The Noble Liar, How and Why the BBC Distorts the News to Promote a Liberal Agenda. A fabulous book here, The Noble Liar. This is an excellent expose of the distortions and bias of the BBC, tendencies which are apparent in news organizations around the globe, worse in some places than others. We work with those exposing what is happening in some RSE, that's relationship and sex ed. We show the pictures and read the lesson plans. We work with parents in particular, trying to alert them to the damage of this type of content on developing youngsters. As Miriam Grossman, MD, reminds us, children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them leaves a lasting impression. We also do a great deal with the once gay phenomenon. The IFTCC, that's the International Federation for Therapy and Counseling Choice, is at the forefront in Europe, the UK, and elsewhere. We know the once gay voice is critical because the opposition is doing all it can to shut it down by banning so-called gay conversion therapy, which is simply talking therapy or counseling. Used to be gay is the best way to push back against the born gay, once gay, always gay claims. We confront a shameful situation in which the intention to deny help to those who have not chosen this life and would do anything to get out of it. This is dreadful. We are pushing back here. Please be in touch if you'd like to connect. Thank you and God bless you. My email, drlisa, drlisa1957@gmail.com. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We will definitely be happy to stay in contact with you. Thank you for your interesting statement. And now I would like to pass the voice to Mrs. Anna Kubacka from Ordo Juris to explain us from the legal perspective why the EU should not interfere in health and family policies of member states.
Ladies and gentlemen, a few words about health policy and the EU. Under Article 6 and Article 168 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, the issue of sexual and reproductive health falls within the scope of national health policy, in relation to which the EU has only ancillary authority and may not seek to harmonize this law across the member states. The lack of authority of the European Union to interfere in the health policies of the member states has been repeatedly confirmed by the European Commission itself. It is questionable whether the EU is even competent to speak or express opinions on these matters. For this reason, the very fact of the report being prepared is controversial, and the thesis in the field of health policy contained in it, and above all calling for changes in policy and law in this area by the member states, aims to exceed the limits of EU competences. In recent years and even months, we have observed more and more frequent cases of attempts by the EU to exceed its competences, both in the field of family law and health policy. Each such case should meet with stiff opposition from the member states. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to pass the voice to Mrs. Leontien Bakermans from One of Us, Netherlands.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of One of Us Netherlands, I would like to update you on a Dutch perspective. In the Netherlands, abortion is still in the criminal code. This is the exception for women in emergency situations. In practice, nobody checks this emergency situation, and for whatever reason, like I don't want a child with a high lip, or even worse, I want to go on holiday now, you can have an abortion up to viability outside the womb, and this is in practice until week 22. So although every pregnancy may be terminated, inclusion in the criminal code gives it a sense that it is not good to do. If you let this go and reverse it by calling abortion a human right, an objective evil act is presented as a good deed. This is deception. How can we speak of a right to kill another person? Moreover, how can we speak of the right of a mother to kill her child? In the law, it's stated that if women want to have an abortion, there is an obliged period of 5 days for reflection, starting from the first consultation of a physician. Pro-choice people want to cancel this waiting period. When abortion is called a human right, keeping the waiting period has no chance. Further, sidewalk counseling is under scrutiny in the Netherlands. City councils are looking for every possibility to limit this and are looking for possibilities to forbid it completely. When the Matic Report is adopted, this will be the opportunity to prohibit sidewalk counseling. Then we have the upcoming of the gender ideology. The Netherlands was the first country who had a specific gender clinic in Amsterdam, where you can go to change your sex. They made the so-called Dutch protocol, in which is outlined how to treat children from 11 years with puberty blockers, to be followed by hormones by age 15 and surgery by age 18. This makes them sterile and lifelong on hormonal medications, which with serious adverse events. This protocol is now used worldwide. Not only is it impossible to change one's sex, it is also a threat for women when any man can call himself a woman. Some countries have recently realized that the child cannot make an informed decision about this. But in the Netherlands, it is almost impossible to criticize this. Support from the Matic Report will strengthen the gender ideology, and it will help to approve a change in the law to be able to change your sex in your passport without any medical attest, the so-called self-ID law. Also, it will facilitate conversion bans to be approved. The Matic Report calls for the abolition of the right to consensuous objection of medical staff. This will have huge implications on the freedom of conscience. In conclusions, all reasons not to vote in favor of the Matic Report. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. I would like to pass the voice to Mr. Moritz Scholtisik from Demo für alle from Germany.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, every state has the right to protect marriage and family. According to the treaties, the European Union has no competence to interfere in the family policies and family laws of its member states. We, from the German pro-family NGO Demo für alle, protest against the new EU Commission's plan to legally recognize parenthood between the EU member states, because such a rule represents a massive attack on marriage, family, and the best interests of a child. For years, the EU, with the help of the international LGBT lobby, has been trying to undermine national laws on marriage, family, and life. Forced cross-border recognition of parenthood in the EU would mean that all the EU member states would have to recognize the adoption of children by same-sex couples, which would violate the best interests of a child, and fundamentally change the legal definition of marriage and family in many states through the back door. Moreover, such a regulation would facilitate access to unethical reproductive technologies, such as egg donation and surrogacy, although both practices are also prohibited in many EU states. And for good reason, because surrogacy means that many surrogate mothers will be exploited, that the child will be reduced to a commodity, and numerous unborn children will be killed through failed transfers. Instead of pushing for the legalization of this new form of human trafficking, the European Union should rather work for an international ban of surrogacy. It is crucial that this dangerous initiative of the EU Commission will be prevented. The EU member states must continue to have the right to protect marriage and family by their national laws. Therefore, new temporary alliances should also be formed where and if possible, because not only pro-life and pro-family organizations from all over Europe should protest against this initiative, but also women's and children's rights activists, as well as anti-human trafficking activists. You can be sure Demo für alle will be at their side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your statement. It was also very, very important for us. And last but not least, I would like to pass the voice to Mrs. Esther Parkani from Center for Fundamental Rights from Hungary.
Dear participants, it is my privilege to represent the Center for Fundamental Rights and call for the signing of this petition against the Matic Report. As Christian conservatives who believe in the value of every human life, born and unborn, we must raise our voice when we find ourselves facing threats to our values. In the past few years, we have seen the legalization and liberalization of abortion in many countries, like Ireland or most recently Argentina. We have witnessed many attempts to recognize abortion as a human right in international documents. We have to act now if we want to make a difference and halt the advancement of the culture of death in our societies. The Matic Report and the draft resolution, which will be presented in front of the plenary of the European Parliament, call for access to abortion to be recognized as a human right, which it is not. Besides the fact that they are shamelessly calling for the murder of innocent unborn children in the name of freedom of choice, a less grave problem is that they are yet again in breach of the treaties which the European Union is built upon. According to the founding treaties, family and health affairs are competences of the member states. Therefore, there is no legal basis for harmonization. This is not the first and probably not the last time that the EU institutions are in breach of the treaties, which makes it even more hypocritical when the same Brussels bureaucracy tries to lecture us on the rule of law. But this time, it's not about the judicial system or freedom of press. This time, it's an attack on those who are unable to defend themselves. That's why we have to step up for them and speak up in their defense. With this petition, we can give a voice to the citizens of Europe who can speak up for the most defenseless among us, unborn babies. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much. I would like to once again thank all of you who were here with us today to form this coalition of NGOs, political leaders, academics that are opposing to the Matic report. As Esther Parkani said, it is so important to speak up in defense of most defenseless ones from our society, and to speak up against the ongoing process of expanding unjustly competences by the European Union institutions. Now I would like to again invite all of you to sign our petition on the website www.say-no-to-EU-violating-treaties.org, and invite all of you to speak about the Matic report, to gather as many as it is possible of the non-governmental organizations and other political leaders, academics, to oppose to this attempt. Thank you so much. And we also have journalists with us today. I think that it would be great to stay just for a few minutes if journalists have any questions on our initiative. So yeah, now it is the time for asking questions. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you again and have a nice day. Bye-bye.